Okay, we're headed into part 3 of our reloading tool. So this is basically the part that's going to house the brass, and I'm going to go ahead and use ream. I've actually trimmed it, you can't see that, but I trimmed it back a little bit. And we're going to go ahead and ream out the inside of that tube to make room for the brass. I'm going to do that now and then we'll come back. Okay, a loaded Carcano cartridge now fits inside. So I'll show you that. It's very hot, so I don't want to leave it in there but a moment. There it is. And that's all it has to be. So I'm going to now remove that. Alright, so our next step is we're going to take one of the shortened 7.62 by 39 steel cases rather. It's got a piece of 3/8 steel rod in it, and that's going to be inserted. That's going to get hammered in as the cap, right in here. Okay, but what you're going to see is steel face up. Okay, and then that's going to get cleaned up. And once we do that, got to drill it through with a hole, and then we use this to adjust depth. Okay, so now I've got a drill bit measuring 197, and I actually did end up putting the shell primer pocket to the rear. I can clean that up later anyway, but I'm going to go ahead and oil and drill through completely. Okay, now having done that last piece, I went ahead and drilled completely through, and that's good. And now I can actually use an expander if I want to, and decapper. I'm giving you the one of the proper size. This isn't the proper size. However, it fits right down through my piece, and I can actually use this like if I'm going to do a 7.62 by 45 or one of those, right? So this can actually be inserted into this tool to work along with it. And I kind of discovered that on the last one kind of by accident, but it's a great addition. So, you know, it's good. And you're going to need a rod of some type, so this works really good. Okay, moving on, we're going to go to the next step. Okay, so I drove that end down. You see the gap? So what I did was I created this long, and then I drove it in to set the depth for my shell. And the shell goes like this. Sorry, it's one-handed. Okay, so shell on end. This piece is going to go over the top. Okay? And then we're going to go into seat. Okay? And that's what we're after. And then honestly, if I use that rod, I'm going to use the bit, but I can use the rod to push back out. Okay, so that's what that hole in the top is for pushing back your brass. If you get stuck or whatever, you can push it out of there. Okay, so now we're going to trim off that top, and then we have to size off the OD on the open end to fit inside that cap piece or base piece. So we're going to do that now. Okay, so the OD is turned down and it slips loosely. Alright, so we're going to stop. Okay, so there's the die with the expander inside it, the Lee expander. Okay, then the other end, you can see it there. And I can just simply slide it out by using another punch or what have you. And it'll work real well. So, you know, not a problem. So anyway, I'm going to move on. I also rounded off the end right there. You can see that. I trimmed that back. Okay, now we got some stuff to do, clean up for the other piece. So I'm going to do that real quick. Okay, so I cleaned up the outside, kind of dressed up the end a little bit. Now I'm going to get ready to bore it for the decapper hole slash swaging pilot hole there. So I'm going to do that next. Okay, as it happens, I made a bullet mold yesterday, and the drill bit I used was .261 at 17/64. So I'm going to go ahead and drill our hole through for that, and then after that we're going to start doing the taper. Okay, so here's our new piece. It's not a beauty winner, but it'll work. So here's what we do. You can see my fit's pretty nice. Okay, so the way we use this, let's say that you have a spent piece of brass. This one isn't, and it's not made to Carcano yet. But what you would do is you turn it upside down, so you got cone upward. We'll do that in the second spot, excuse me. You need to decap it first. Let's say it's spent, you need to decap it. So you put it down in there, and you go ahead and drive a decapper down through there, or an expander for like a Lee. Lee is perfect. Here, let me get one, and I'll show you just for example. Okay, so this one's Lee. And change hands. So when you look in there, it's got a decapper, expander, and when it sits down in, it'll actually, the shaft will come up. And if it weren't to come up, you could just take a punch and drive it down, and then take the same punch and drive it out. But either way, you would go down in here like so. Okay, and it's going to be centered up, and it's going to be ready. It'll just go ahead and decap the piece. Okay, so once that's done, what you'll do is you flip it over, and you put your casing in there. Your primer would already be out, your neck is expanded, and you need to put a new primer in. And what I do is just lay a primer on there and tap them with a hammer. You do what you want to do, that's the way I do it. Okay? Now we'd want to powder charge it. So we would take the empty case, and you put it in here. It's already primed, necked, and so forth. Powder charge it, right? So now we're powder charged. Now we need a bullet. Okay? So I'm going to grab a bullet here. These I made yesterday. Like I say, these are not ready. It is already necked to size, but it's not been turned down yet. So it would go like that, and then at that point you would need to have the decapper out. Hang on just a second. Okay, so with the decapper out, you would take your piece here and lay it on there, and then generally what I do is I take it, I flip it upside down, okay, and take that piece off, and I want to make sure that I'm centered up on the nose of that bullet down into that opening. And then I can take the other piece and slip it over the top, and you simply drive it down until it's seated, okay. And then once you do that, you go ahead and pull it out. Okay, so now bullet out. You take that same piece and set it bottom down, and you would go ahead and drop it in there and put a lead decapper on the base, and you just tap tap, and now you're necked, and now you're done. And that's that deal. So I'll go ahead and load one up here. Hang on just a minute. My brass is already primed, so I'm not going to unprime and then prime. I'm just going to powder charge, seat the bullet, and so forth. Hang on. Okay, my case has been brought into spec on the neck, the base down here, and the rim. So 0.45 on the rim, 0.446 on the main body down near the base, and I'm not going to worry about the rest of that. So I'm going to go ahead and charge it with powder. Okay, so our case is powder charged. It's now sitting in the die, so to speak. Now I'm going to go ahead and take the upper piece that's been taper reamed, and that's going to go over the top after, of course, the seat a bullet on it. So these are the bullets that I made yesterday, and it should just seat. Hang on just a second, I'll get that seated, and then I'll put the other piece on. Okay, with two hands I had no problem seating that bullet. Okay, so now what I do is I take the other piece here, and it goes over the top. Alright, I'm going to flip it over, and I want to make sure that that bullet is going down and that its nose is sitting right in that hole, centered up. Okay, so now what we do, this other piece is going to go over the top of it, just like that. Okay, and then I'm going to drive it down. So I'm going to set this down. Actually, maybe I could prop. No, that's not going to work. So I'm going to pause and drive it. Okay, so once she's driven down and the bullet's seated, that's what it's going to look like. You're going to have a flush bullet in there, okay? Now we got to poke it out of there, okay? And the easiest way is to take a little rod. You can use the decapper on just the rounded end and stick it through the hole and push it out, okay? Hang on. Okay, here we go. Out she comes, okay? And now we have our seated bullet, alright? So now at this point, I need to crimp. So we're going to flip it again, okay? So that cone shape is down, and the normal side is up, and we're going to drop it in, okay? And then I'm going to go ahead and take this, set it on top, so that's the depriming base, and I'm going to tap it. Hang on just a second, I can't do that with one hand. Okay, so it doesn't take much force to push that down, and the reason I use a decapper base is I don't want to be banging on a loaded cartridge with the primer. But that's our completed cartridge. Now if for some reason that the cartridge was long, then what you can do is take this top piece, and even though I've ground it half-assed smooth, I can actually take a big punch and I can drive it in a little further in order to adjust that overall length because of the nose or what have you. So, and I did that on the 7.62 by 45. So this guy is Carcano specific, and each one of these that you make, they're going to be specific because of the overall length and so forth. So what I have so far that I've made, they're a little different in size, looking like toilet paper holders, honestly. But the one on the left is for 7.62 by 45, and the one on the right is for Carcano. And I didn't have to make them quite that long, I mean the one on the right, but it's just the way it worked out, and I'm happy with it. So anyway, hope this helps people. Have a good night. Bye.